What if the love story that defined a whole generation didn't really end? What if the woman in the red dress, the woman who captured hearts across the world, had another story waiting to be told? Pretty Woman wasn't just a movie, it was a dream. A fairy tale that made us believe in magic, in chances, in love that transforms lives. But dreams don't always stop when the credits roll. Sometimes they return. Years later, more powerful, more emotional, and more real than before. Asterisk. In 1990, Pretty Woman arrived like a spark of light. It wasn't just a romantic comedy, it became a cultural phenomenon. Julia Roberts, then a young actress, stepped into the role of Vivian Ward, a woman from the margins of society, who found herself caught in a whirlwind romance with Edward Lewis, played by Richard Gere. Their story was unexpected, imperfect, and yet unforgettable. Vivian wasn't the typical fairy tale princess, but she was full of heart, honesty, and courage, and that made her unforgettable. The movie changed Julia Roberts' life forever. Before Pretty Woman, she was a rising star. After it, she was a household name, a global icon. The America's sweetheart of the 1990s, audiences fell in love with her laugh, her charm, and her ability to bring raw humanity to a character who could have been written as just another cliché. With Vivian, Julia brought warmth, humor, and vulnerability. And that's why the world couldn't look away. The film itself became more than a love story. It was about transformation, about second chances, about the power of kindness and connection. It asked a simple question. Can two people from completely different worlds find something true, something lasting in each other? And for millions of fans, the answer was yes. But time moved forward. Julia Roberts went on to make some of the most beloved films of the era: My Best Friend's Wedding, Notting Hill, Runaway Bride, and the Oscar-winning Erin Brockovich. She became more than an actress. She became a symbol of Hollywood itself. Her career was a journey of highs, risks, and unforgettable roles. And yet, no matter how many films came after, Pretty Woman always remained at the heart of her legacy. It was the role that made her eternal. Now, imagine this. Decades later, in 2025, the story is not over. Vivian is older. She has lived, she has loved, she has lost. Life has not been a perfect fairy tale, because no real life ever is. But what if she is given a second chance? A chance to rediscover love, not as a young dreamer, but as a woman who knows what it means to fall, to rise, and to carry scars of the past. That is the heartbeat of Pretty Woman too. It is not just a sequel. It is an emotional return. It is Julia Roberts stepping once again into the role that changed her life. But this time, with the wisdom, grace, and strength of the years she has lived since. And for the audience, it is more than just a movie. It is a reunion with a character we thought we had said goodbye to. The comeback of Julia Roberts in this role is more than nostalgia. It is a statement. In a world where Hollywood often moves too fast, where stories fade quickly, this film dares to ask, what if we revisit the story that shaped us? What if we allow a beloved character to grow, to age, to change, just like we do? For Julia, this is deeply personal. After years of stepping away from leading roles, focusing on family and selective projects, she now returns in the most powerful way possible. Not with a new character, but with the one that made her eternal. The one who gave her voice, gave her identity, gave her a place in cinema history. And for us, the audience, this is more than a comeback. It's an emotional bridge. We are not only watching Vivian again, we are watching Julia Roberts, a woman who has lived through decades of fame, love, heartbreak, and triumph. We are watching her step into her past and reshape it for the future. So when we ask, why Pretty Woman 2? Why now? The answer is simple. Because some stories don't end. Some stories are waiting for the right moment to return. And that moment is now. Asterisk. She was once the face of Hollywood's golden smile, the woman whose laughter could light up an entire screen. Julia Roberts wasn't just an actress. She was a symbol of hope, charm, and authenticity in an industry that often feels distant and cold. But then, she stepped back, quietly, carefully, She chose family over fame, peace over pressure, and silence over the endless noise of the spotlight. For many years, Julia Roberts seemed like a chapter Hollywood had read long ago. It's a beautiful memory we replayed in old movies and late-night nostalgia, and then the whispers began. Could she return? Would she return? After all, few stars ever step back into the roles that first gave them wings. But Julia is not just any star. She is Vivian. And Vivian's story never truly ended. The year is 2025, and the impossible becomes real. Julia Roberts returns to the role that defined her. The role that made the world fall in love with her in the first place. But this isn't the Julia of 1990. This is a woman who has lived, a woman with lines of wisdom etched on her face, a woman who carries decades of life in her heart. And that is what makes her comeback extraordinary. Hollywood loves sequels, but this one feels different. It isn't about chasing box office numbers or reviving an old brand for profit. This is about legacy. About bringing Vivian back not as a fantasy, but as a reflection of time, resilience, and survival. In Julia's return, you see something rare, a performance that mirrors real life. Imagine this Vivian walking the streets of Beverly Hills once again, but no longer the wide-eyed dreamer. She has seen the world. She has lived through its beauty and its cruelty. She has laughed. She has cried. She has lost. Yet here she is still searching, still open, still ready for one more chapter. The Julia we see on screen and the Julia we know in reality merge into one powerful presence. And that's the secret. This isn't just Julia acting, it's Julia living. Every line she delivers, every glance she gives, carries the weight of her own journey. We are not only watching Vivian. We are watching Julia Roberts reclaim her throne. Not as the bright-eyed newcomer, but as the queen who has nothing left to prove. Her return also carries a quiet rebellion. Hollywood often sidelines women after a certain age, pushing them into the shadows or giving them roles that feel small. But Julia's comeback in Pretty Woman challenges that. It tells us that love stories don't belong only to the young. That second chances are not reserved for the first half of life. That beauty, grace, and passion grow deeper with time, not weaker. For fans, this return is emotional. It's like seeing an old friend again after decades apart. We remember the laughter, the tears, the iconic red dress. And now we see the woman who wore it transformed into someone wiser, someone stronger, someone even more captivating. The screen doesn't just welcome Julia Roberts back, embraces her like family, and make no mistake, its comeback is more than personal. It's cultural. In a time when the world feels fractured and uncertain, Julia's return reminds us of a simpler truth, that stories can heal, that characters can inspire, and that sometimes the past has the power to comfort us in the present. Think of it this way when Julia Roberts walks onto the screen in Pretty Woman 2. She isn't just playing Vivian again. She is speaking to every person who ever believed in love against the odds. To every person who ever dreamed of a second chance. To every person who wondered if it's ever too late to start again. Her return is not just a performance. It's a message. A reminder that even after decades, even after silence, even after life has taken its turns, some stories are worth coming back for. Julia Roberts has returned. Not as a star trying to revive her fame, but as an artist ready to share her heart once more. And that is why Pretty Woman 2 is not just a movie. It is history being written all over again. Asterisk, what happens after Happily Ever After? That's the question that Pretty Woman 2 dares to ask. The original film ended with Edward climbing the fire escape, a bouquet of flowers in his hand, and Vivian smiling as if love had solved everything. But life doesn't freeze on a perfect kiss. Time moves forward. People change. And love must face the storms of life. In this new chapter, we meet Vivian again, but not the young woman in the sparkling red dress. She is older now, wiser, shaped by decades of choices and consequences. Her laughter still lingers, but it carries a softness of experience. Her eyes hold the weight of love lost and lessons learned. She has lived through success, through heartbreak, through moments of doubt. She has built herself up more than once. But as we find her again, the question is simple. What does love look like when you are no longer searching for a savior, but for a partner who understands the person you have become? The story unfolds in a world that is no longer the glossy Beverly Hills of the 90s. The city is different now, faster, louder, harsher. The glamour remains, but so does the emptiness that often hides behind it. Vivian, who once walked those streets with uncertainty, now walks them with confidence. Yet behind her strength lies a quiet loneliness. The kind that grows when you have seen the world but still feels something is missing. Edward, too, has changed. Whether or not he remains in Vivian's story is the great mystery of the sequel. Some whispers say Richard Gere may return, giving audiences the reunion they crave. Others imagine a new character, a man who reflects Vivian's maturity, who doesn't see her as someone to rescue, but someone to walk beside. In either case, the heart of the film is not about rekindling the past, but about confronting it. What happens when love has history? When it comes back to you in unexpected ways? This sequel is not a fairy tale in the traditional sense. It is a reflection of reality, written with the same magic that made the first film unforgettable. It explores themes that matter deeply today: second chances, forgiveness, and the courage to love after loss. It dares to say that love doesn't expire at 40, 50, or 60, that passion, tenderness, connection are not reserved for the young, but are just as powerful, not more when found later in life. Picture Vivian sitting at a cafe, her hair touched with silver, her smile quiet but radiant. A wedding ring rests on the table, not on her finger. The rain falls outside, soft and steady, as if time itself is washing away the years. Then, across the room, a pair of eyes meet hers, familiar, or perhaps entirely new. In that single moment, the audience feels it, the spark, the possibility. The opening of a second chapter, and it isn't just about romance. Vivian's journey in Pretty Woman 2 is also about self-discovery. Who is she when she's not defined by someone else's love? What dreams has she buried, and what dreams does she dare to chase again? This film gives her the space to answer those questions, to stand not only as a lover, but as a woman reclaiming her story. The beauty of the sequel lies in its tone. It doesn't erase the magic of the first film, it honors it. The music, the nostalgia, the playful spirit of the original are still there, but wrapped in deeper emotions, richer themes, and a tenderness that only time can bring. Where once we saw a fairy tale, now we see a life. Where once we cheered for a kiss, now we root for healing, for truth, for love that grows through cracks instead of avoiding them. For Julia Roberts, this story is a gift. It allows her to embody Vivian once more, but as a character who reflects everything Julia herself has lived into motherhood: maturity, triumphs, struggles, and the courage to face the world anew. The line between actress and character blurs beautifully, leaving the audience unsure if they are watching Vivian's story or Julia's own heart spilling onto the screen. Pretty Woman 2 is not a repeat, it's a rebirth. It shows us that every ending can be rewritten. Every goodbye can hold the seed of a new hello. It is a reminder that love, in all its forms, deserves a second chance. And as Vivian steps once more into the spotlight, audiences everywhere will realize some stories don't just stay with us, they grow with us. Asterisk, there are comebacks. And then there are moments that feel like destiny. Julia Roberts returning as Vivian is not just a Hollywood headline, it is an emotional event, one that reaches far beyond movie theaters. Because this isn't about a sequel. This is about revisiting a piece of ourselves, about reconnecting with the dream we once believed in and seeing how it has changed. It's just as we have. Julia's return carries a weight that few actors ever achieve. When she smiles again as Vivian, it is no longer the smile of a young woman on the brink of discovery. It is the smile of someone who has lived through decades of highs and lows, of someone who knows what it means to lose and to rebuild, of someone who has found strength not in fantasy, but in survival. That kind of depth cannot be acted, can only be lived. And Julia brings all of that lived truth into her performance. In many ways, Pretty Woman 2 becomes a mirror for its audience. The viewers who loved Vivian in 1990 are not the same people they were then. They, too, have aged. They, too, have experienced love that lasted, or love that failed. They, too, have carried scars, regrets, and quiet hopes for another chance. And when Julia steps back into Vivian's shoes, she is walking for them as well. Her comeback is not only her story, it is ours. Hollywood has always chased youth, chasing fresh faces and box office trends. But Julia's return refuses that rule. She stands as proof that beauty does not fade, that love stories do not belong only to the young, and that audiences are hungry for something real, something raw, something that reflects the truth of their own lives. Pretty Woman 2 is not glossy escapism. It is emotional realism wrapped in romance, a blend of nostalgia and honesty that makes it far more than a sequel. There is also something deeply symbolic in Julia Roberts reclaiming Vivian after all these years. Vivian, in the original story, was a woman overlooked and underestimated by the world. A woman who found value when someone finally chose to see her. Now, decades later, Julia breathes new life into that character, showing us a Vivian who no longer waits for validation, but who knows her own worth. That shift is powerful. It transforms the sequel from a simple romantic comedy into a story of empowerment, resilience, self-respect. And it is not only Vivian who is given a second chance, it is Julia herself. After stepping away from the spotlight, many wondered if she had quietly closed the book on her career. But here she is, not only returning, but doing so in the boldest way possible, by stepping back into the role that made her an icon. This comeback is emotional not only for the audience, but for Julia herself. It is a conversation between her past and her present, a bridge between who she was and who she has become. The emotional depth of this film comes from its willingness to embrace imperfection. Pretty Woman 2 does not try to recreate the sparkle of youth. It honors the struggles, it's the heartbreaks, and the quiet strength that come with time. The love story at its core is not about being swept off your feet. It is about finding someone who sees you fully, scars and all, and still chooses to stay. That is a love story for adults, for survivors, for dreamers who have grown up but still believe in magic. For Julia Roberts, the comeback also represents courage. Returning to Vivian means returning to the character that the world first fell in love with. It means facing the expectations of millions, the weight of nostalgia, and the pressure of history. But Julia does not shy away. She embraces it, transforming that pressure into power. Her return is not tentative, is triumphant, and in doing so, she redefines what a comeback really means. It's not about proving she can still headline a movie. It's about proving that some roles, some stories, some emotions are timeless. It's about proving that the heart doesn't age, that hope doesn't disappear, that second chances are always possible. When the lights go down in theaters and Julia Roberts appears once again as Vivian Ward, audiences will feel more than excitement. They will feel recognition. They will feel gratitude. They will feel the quiet ache of seeing a dream they thought was gone return, more meaningful than ever. Pretty Woman 2 is not just a film. It is Julia Roberts' emotional comeback. It is Vivian's second chance. And it is our reminder that life always leaves room for one more chapter.